the sales cycle.
Yeah,
The enrollment
I think
model.
that exactly what you said kind of circles us back to our first point about being really prepared.
Right.
Because you do need to look at what's the difference between what I currently have existing for business rules and what I want to be a drip campaign. How am I going to designate one or the other? And then also being prepared with the collateral that matches that.
Sure.
You need a lot more emails if somebody's going to open or not open versus everybody gets the same email in a business rule.
100%. So I think part of the preparedness is knowing what your messaging is going to be. What kind of messaging do you want to start with? It could be as simple as trying a pre-tour drip campaign or a post-tour drip campaign, but really thinking through your workflow and saying, all right, in a perfect world with one particular parent, what do I want to happen? You know, and thinking through even, I have a 2-year-old. Do I want the 2-year-old messaging to be different than the infant messaging versus the pre-K messaging? I mean, these things can get very big. And so I think, again, to Lisa's point with preparedness, you don't want to just turn this feature on and not have the collateral and the resources to implement it. So really be thinking through what your workflow should look like. Do you have all the necessary tools? And is your team ready to manage the communication that's going to be out of your system? So part of the preparedness checklist, have your email templates together.
Yep.
Understand your workflow.
Yep.
Make sure that your team, the ones actually using this, are ready to go. Now, can my center level users, can my assistant directors, what can they do with the drip campaign? Can they create it? Can they manage it?
This is really something that's intended to be on that higher level.
Okay.
It's really more about your marketing efforts and your outbound communication. So I would say that this is going to be housed at a higher level than the location level.
That would make sense to me. I mean, I think just like your business rules, anything that is changing the structure of the way the parents interact with you or messaging they get from you, that's going to be controlled up at the very highest level of your organization based on privileges and things. All right, well, so after I've decided I'm prepared, or I think I'm prepared,
Yes.
how do I know? Do I just turn it on, or what's the steps here?
I was just going to say, let's say you've done some preparation.
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
And you think you're ready.
Okay.
So what you will want to do is just know that when this launch happened a week and a half ago, that all of the functionality is there.
Okay.
But the preference, the ability to use drip campaigns is not turned on.
So I won't actually see it anywhere in my system yet.
Correct.
Okay.
You've done your preparation and you say, okay, now I'm ready. What you would want to do is submit a ticket to support at Childcare CRM,
Okay.
and we'll turn that feature on for you. We'll
Okay.
make it available to you in your system, in your database. Even then, after we've made it available to you, if you're still not quite sure and you want to be a little bit more prepared, that's okay. Because in order to do that, I'm going to show you here on the screen. In order to actually set up the functionality, you're going to go to your preferences, and you'll see here it says enable drip campaigns.
Gotcha. So I'll still need to
until-
turn it on.
You have to turn it on.
Okay.
You have to enable
So
it.
Two-step
Yeah.
what do they call it?
Authentication.
Yes, authentication.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, so I submit my ticket to support at childcarecrm.com and I say, Lisa Henkel, we're ready to go. Are
Yes.
you going to ask me any questions? Are you going to make sure that I'm ready, or are you just trusting my judgment here?
We are going to make sure that we help you be fully prepared. So one of the things that we're going to look at is, again, this takes a lot of collateral.
Right.
This takes a lot of email preparedness and a lot of messaging that's out there. So when you say I'm ready for drip campaigns to be turned on, we're going to look at, okay, are you a location center user who's saying I'm ready for this to be turned on, or are you a person who would be designing and implementing campaigns? And then we're going to look at some of that collateral to make sure that it is in place,
Okay.
and that the idea of being fully prepared is real and true for
Is
you.
real. And I would imagine the other thing we want to know is, do you feel confident interacting with business rules as they are? Do you feel confident editing them, changing them, turning them on, turning them off? Because somebody who's going to implement drip campaigns, there is a big piece of this that's built into your business rules, and you're going to want to be confident there. So there might even be some prep in learning how to use business rules if you've never done that. If you've kind of set it and forget it, left it the way it was from the very beginning. We've also created a great landing page for you. So there's a quick start guide or a user guide. Lisa can show you that. So we've done releases in the past. You guys have seen your system growing and improving. And we usually launch a pop-up that happens right in the beginning of the day when we've done a release. But what happens is you're logging into CRM to get things done. So you're dismissing that, and then you're wondering where the release notes are. As you go through the system, you're thinking, this changed, something looks different, and I have no idea what happened. So we're going to move that now to a landing page that will stay here. And this will not just be for this release. Every time we do a new release, anytime we do new training videos, we will post it here. So you can find that at childcarecrm.com/latest-release. This will be continually updated. And you will see, if you've never been here before, you will see a new pop-up that says, do you want to interact, or do you want notifications from us? If you allow them, you'll learn about every time we update it. And there's a shortcut on the product too.
Yep,
So
in the product tab, latest release.
So you can always click there. So what you'll find in it as of today are notes about our big three is what we called them. So you've got notes on the drip campaigns, the two-way communication, and the enrollment team. So today we're going to focus on drip campaigns, and I think part of your preparedness is reading through this. So before you submit that ticket, make sure that you've checked this out, that you've read through what a drip campaign is. Here's some screenshots of what it will look like, how you will set it up. These are quick to print if you need to, and then a detailed guide step by step. You will notice that this step by step is one of the lengthier ones. Because there's just more to make sure that you do. It seems like a really easy concept to just turn on and start sending emails, but the drip campaign builder and process is probably the most extensive of the big three in the release. We've also included some best practices, so there's some things in there that you'll want to know about how to segment the audience, who should get what kind of messaging. If you've never thought about things like A/B testing or testing alternate messaging, you're going to want to know more about that, because you can always switch and pivot the campaign based on the responses that you're getting, which I think is what we love, because it's different than business rules. If you notice that there's a specific template not generating the response you want, you're going to want to go test a different message in there, and now you can do that. So be sure you've checked this out, that you've had your team read it over, watch the videos, anything you want, and then submit your ticket and say you're ready to go. So I have passed the customer success preparedness plan checklist.
You get a check mark.
Yes, I did it. I might not have gotten an A++, but I did pass it. So now I can see the preference, Lisa. What happens then?
So you're going to see the preference here. It'll say enabled drip campaigns.
Okay.
You need to move that to enabled.
All right.
Before it's turned on, it will say just like this, disabled. You want to move that to enabled. Once you have moved it to enabled, when you go to the marketing area, you will then have drip campaigns available.
Oh, that makes sense. It lives in the marketing tab. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll need the templates in place already. We know that. Then I come to the drip campaigns, and what I'm looking at here is the campaign name, statuses. Those are all sortable columns like everywhere else in the system, which I like. Let's talk about the difference in those statuses. So I see two that are published and one that's archived. So published means it is live. It's available for use today.
Yes. It's not just available, it is
in use.
It's happening, yes.
It's in use. Archived means it is no longer in use and it cannot be used. It is almost like your rejected status. It's still living there. You can review it, you can report on it, but you won't be able to make any modifications, and you won't be able to edit and relaunch it. You'll need to build it again. So archive in this system, in this instance, means unusable, basically, not in use and unusable. Retired. Archived. Oh, my dad would love that. You are not retired, Dad. Congratulations on your archivedness.
Your archivement.
I love it. Will you click into that fall promotion so we can see what it looks like?
Just real quick,
Oh, sure.
There's one more status. Draft.
Draft. Okay, so we don't have one in here, but we can create one.
Yes.
So when I'm in draft mode, can somebody be receiving my messages?
So draft mode means exactly what it sounds like. That's when you are designing. That's
Okay.
when you are creating it. It has not been published. It is not live and active. You're just getting the pieces together.
I understand. So, and I would imagine, since remember, these drip campaigns are managed at the very, very, very top corporate level. So again, you'll need access to the very top of your database and have privileges that allow you to be in the marketing tab. But when it is in draft or it is in archived, you cannot expect your center level users to see it, or you can expect that they won't be able to interact with it. So you're okay if you're still working on things or you're building out a new drip campaign. You don't have to worry. As long as it's in draft mode, no one at the center level or even the regional levels will be able to accidentally publish that campaign for you. Okay. So when I click into published, or a campaign that is published, what I first get to see is the statistics, which this is probably the thing I'm most excited for. We have been talking about having graphical views of reporting and metrics for so long, and this is our first
Yeah.
peek at it. So, spoiler alert, all I can imagine, and you would know more than me, but all I can imagine is that means it's coming. Graphical views of reports are coming if we can do it here. So I'm very excited for that. But when you click into it now, you can see in that campaign your events that have happened. And we're going to walk through what those events are when we build one. But now I can see the amount of bounces I have, the amount of emails that never made it, the ones that were delivered or processed. So any events that you want to track, you can add in there. The actions on the other side, again, we'll set those up with you. But it's basically asking you what actions were spurred because of the campaign. So for instance, if I said anytime a parent opens it, I want to fire a different business rule, or I want to fire a new campaign, you can see the actions start charting there on the right. I think you can also look into the individual drips and see what the results there have been.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So if you wanted to see if you want to drill in and see more details on a specific template, you can do that as well.
So you can see the statistics for each step of the drip.
I love it. Stop triggers. These work exactly like your business rules. Stop triggers in the system wide are built on statuses. So if you want a campaign to stop based on a status move, you'll build a stop trigger just like you did the business rule.
Yes.
What do I see in the participants tab? I would imagine everybody that's okay. What I like about this one is that, so this is another thing we should point out about drip campaigns. Participants will hit these drip campaigns at different points,
Yes.
right? So, whereas when you send a mass email out, everybody gets it on the same day, unless you go back to that group and you resend it 3 weeks from now.
Right.
In a drip campaign, it's dynamic. It starts, it stops, people are added to it, people are leaving it. It's always, it's constantly moving and updating itself. So you'll want to go in the participants tab and see who started when, and you can sort all of those columns if you want to see your newest or your oldest. Also, what drip they are currently on. So are most people in the first drip? Are most people in the second drip? What events have happened? What actions have happened? I really like this view because I think when you have something as dynamic as a drip campaign, you're just going to be curious about where everybody's at and how they're moving through. Does this?
And what's their responsiveness?
Yeah, and does this work like other parts of the system where you can click the lead and I imagine it goes to their? Yeah, very good. I love it. And then in the builder, all right, so when you're in published, what should I be looking at here in the builder? I can't actually change anything, right?
No, but this gives you a little bit of a more detailed view
Okay.
of that specific campaign.
Okay.
So we can see here what type of campaign this is, when we're doing some sending, what the drips are, what our stops are. So this really gives you just a little bit more detail. Maybe you really loved this campaign. Maybe this campaign was really, really successful for you and you want to replicate some of those pieces in another campaign.
Okay.
This is a great way to figure out what worked.
Okay. At the bottom of this page, I see pause and unpublished. So pause means that it's going to stop instances that are currently happening, right?
Yes.
We're going to stop where people are. We're not going until we hit republish. If I stopped at drip 2, even if my trigger for drip 3 comes while I'm in pause, I'm going to be paused until I hit start again. So that kind of gives you the opportunity to do that drafting mode. You've kind of moved out of draft, but you want to go change a template out, or you want to change a stop trigger in there. Go ahead, hit pause, because you can't actually make any changes while it is currently published. Unpublishing is going to literally stop all instances now and all future instances and give you the option to change everything and restart it, or archive it, because you can't archive it as long as it's published either. So if you're ready to stop a campaign, you'll want to hit unpublish and archive, right?
Yep.
Do you think it would be helpful to build one out and show them how that works?
I think we should do that.
Okay, so then let's go back to drip campaigns. I love that warning. Okay, so what happened here, this is good, is that Lisa and I moved down to a region or a center, and what it's telling us is you cannot manage this, you cannot change it unless you're at your corporate level, so you can jump back up to the corporate level from there, and it will take you. All right, so let's add a campaign, because there's some nuances in here I want to make sure that people understand. So a drip campaign name, guys, it's just like your managed groups. No one's going to see that except you, but keep it classy. And also something, think about as your drip campaign list, keep it classy. As your drip campaign list grows, something that you will remember it as. So I always, naming conventions, I always say add your year, add the season, add some kind of reminder. Like, just don't write toddler promotion. When did you use this toddler promotion? What was it? So there you go. I think that's helpful to sort. The difference between, so you see where it says countdown campaign. Your options here, when you click countdown campaign, we are working towards something. So unlike business rules where we're going in set on day 2, on day 3, on day 5, we're saying until something happens, we want this campaign to go. So what are my options in there? So I've got the child, the lead, and the task. And then on the child, what do I have? I have until they age out, so until they're too old to attend my center, until we have paid a fee, so waitlist or registration, until their date of birth comes, their expected start date, which I think is probably going to be the most popular one if I had to guess, because everybody, one of the biggest reasons we had this feature come into existence is because everyone wanted to do a campaign up until the start date to make sure that they're prepared for their first day and that you don't lose that registration. So you've been trying these workarounds, it's not gone very well. This one's gonna allow you to work towards the start date.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about how do we go backwards from the start date. So what we're saying is the start date's our end goal. That's what we're working toward. We're filling in the gap between today and that start date.
I love it. I mean, we've always wanted to count up to something, and business rules trigger forward. So the idea of moving backwards just was never a thing. Or until their waitlist date comes. What about in our tasks? What do we have there? Is it task date? Okay. So we can set it on the due date or the original due date, and again, work towards, so you could use that for the start today task or the open house task or whatever you've got in there. Tour task, exactly. So you can, instead of just doing a reminder of the tour, you can do a campaign moving towards the tour. I love it. And then the lead date. All right, so what's the difference when if I click no, then I've got my default. So can you explain this part to me? Is this kind of my traditional business rule type intervals?
Sort of.
Okay.
So this is going to give you an amount of time from trigger.
All right.
So yes, it sort of looks like a business rule in that standpoint, but again, what you're gaining here is the functionality for interaction in that gap.
Got it.
So yes, we're saying a month, but if the recipient does something in that month, something else will happen. Whereas in a business rule, that's not the case.
Okay, so instead of counting down to something, I am setting a set length. So I say, when this task happens, for this one is saying for every 1 month, I want a new drip to go out, or I can do weeks, days, things like that. Okay. And then in number of drips, you can decide how many stops in this journey you're going to get. So I think it goes up to 10. The thought being there that if you're passing 10, you're probably in a new drip. You probably have a new promotion or a new thought that you're trying to get out there. So 10 is probably a good amount, and it's manageable. I think the sweet spot is between 3 and 5, but we'll see what you guys think. It is your systems.
We have the rule of 7.
Rule of 7, there you go.
So,
all right, so maybe the sweet spot is between 5 and 10. Let's find out. The send between, I really like this because
I love this.
We are constantly talking to you guys about email best practices. What do we know about open rates? Well, we know opens on Mondays and Fridays are for the birds. We also know that opens happen really well at top of the hour. And unfortunately at commute times and dinner time, that's probably your best bet. So sad to say, but it's true. But with business rules, you have never been able to say send during this time or send without these days, because you're saying, on the first day, the third day, and the fifth day, I want this to happen. And it triggers from the minute that lead hits the status or the lead completes the task or wherever you're at. So if you completed that task at 4:10, then you can expect day 3 at 4:10, the email is going to go out unless you make some changes to it. In this situation, what we can say is, doesn't matter when the lead hits that status or when the event is added. I only want the emails or the communication to go out during these times and on these days. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you know that you don't want something to go out on Saturday, we're just going to unclick Saturday.
All right. I love it. The description, again, this is for you guys to recall what you did or any kind of notes that you have in there. Keep it classy campaign.
Okay.
All right, so when I get to the first part of our campaign builder wizard.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to go back real quick because I don't remember if we set a countdown or a drip length. Which way would you like to go?
Let's talk about the countdown. I think it's important that they see how to use that. That's probably.
I think so too.
I think the interval one is pretty self-explanatory. Try it out, see how you think about it. But it's basically saying, in 1 day, in 3 days, in 5 days, in 1 month. I think that concept's easy. The countdown campaign is a little bit different, so let's talk about that one. All right, so here in your first drip, when you're counting down to something, because you're not picking a set interval here, you will need to use this kind of percentage calculator. How far into the trigger or after the trigger do you want the first drip, the second drip, the third drip to go out? So the way Lisa has it...
I'm going to ask you again. I
Yeah.
don't understand this. Why can't I just say, here's the date, and I want to be this far ahead of it or this far ahead of it?
Because the campaigns are so dynamic and your participants are so dynamic, how would your system, although it is very intelligent, how would I know what you're talking about?
Exactly. Because this campaign is going to apply to many children.
People.
And they all have different start dates.
And they're going to jump on and jump off at different times and things like that. So that's why you would need not a set interval for this one, and that's why you need to be able to say 0% is get from the minute you launch. Then you have the ability to move it to 25, 50, 75.
And the gap is different. Some children will have 2 weeks between when they start, when the campaign starts, and when their start date is, and some will have 2 months.
Right.
So we're looking for a way to make sure that they each get that
and
communication.
And the thing I like is when you're using the countdown campaign, don't forget that you just told us what days you absolutely do not want something to happen, what time frames you don't want something to happen. So just because you're kind of guesstimating what 25% is, you can still guarantee that it'll go out 25% in on a Thursday morning at 11:50. That's okay. You can do that. But this is basically what you're doing, and you're saying, how far into this campaign would I want the first drip to happen? So I think the best way I can kind of visualize that is if you are setting a traditional business rule up and you say add task in 0 minutes, that's what this is. Send email in 0 minutes, that's what this is. If you're going in there traditionally and you're saying send this email in 24 hours, you would not want to be at 0%. You want to move it forward a little bit. It also depends on how many drips you added, right? Obviously, if you've got 3 drips, 100% is a lot shorter. If you've got 10 drips, you're going a lot longer on 100%, and that's something to keep in mind. So, all right, so...
That is really something to keep in mind, the number of drips, especially when you're looking at a start date, because 10 drips is going to be 10 emails that go out, and if that's in a 2-week period, that's a lot of communication.
There's part of the preparedness, guys. I mean, really think that through. If I am setting up a drip campaign with 9 promotional emails before a start dates could happen on Friday. Do you really want us to send 9 emails in that course of time, or should your start date campaign be shorter? Should it be an interval campaign versus a countdown campaign? What do you guys want to happen? So again, this is the reason that we want you to be prepared for all of them. But this one does take a lot of thought, a lot of workflow understanding, and you really probably want to test it out before you just launch it. This might not be, maybe not a back to school 2018 campaign.
How do I test it out?
That's a good question. How do you test
Emily,
it out?
how do I test it out?
So one of the things that our customer success team has been gracious enough to set up for us is a lab. So if you've passed the preparedness test, Lisa Hankel gives you the gold seal of approval, you're ready to go, you've got everything you need, but you're still not quite ready, or you're not 100% sure that you actually understand how it's going to work or what it's going to look like. In creating that ticket and saying support@childcarecrm.com, please help me, I'm ready to turn this on, we're going to offer you the ability to work within the lab. It's a sandbox, it's a play environment, it's a testing environment. We'll create a user for you. You get in there, build a campaign, fire it off, see if you like it, see how your team's responding to it before you roll it out. So don't feel like we're trying to set all these layers up of, are you really sure? Are you really ready? You've read your documents, you've asked for help, we've made sure that you're ready, we've turned it on for you. If you still want to play, do you have anybody using the lab environment now?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We have several users who are playing in there to make sure that they understand what kind of internal changes and processes do they need to make? What kind of email templates do they need to design? And that's really a good way for them to figure all of that out.
I like it. And I think that really spurred from the question of, I've seen it come in for your team over and over in the last couple weeks, but our customers will ask, are drip campaigns right for us? Can you tell me if this is a good fit for my organization? And I think the lab environment really answers that, because the truth is that no one can really tell you if it's right for your school except for you.
Right.
You need to know that. We can tell you how others are using it, how it's meant to be used, what you can expect to see, but the expectations within your organization are set by you. So I think using the lab environment before you just start is really the best way to go. And then why not? Yeah, why not try it? All right, so in the drip name, again, this is something that you're going to recognize it as. So you can leave it as the first drip, second drip, third drip, or you can say this is the one with the 50% off registration, or this is the invite to open house. However, you're going to recognize it. In your template type, you'll be able to choose between email and text message. So if this is going to be an email, when you click into template, you're going to see exactly what you're used to. Again, this is up at corporate level, so you will see all templates that you've created in there. The actions, this is when, as Lisa said, you're going to kind of let the recipient take over. And now you can say, I'm gonna send this email template, but if one of these things happens, here's how I wanna change direction. Now, these are not required. You do not have to add an action. You can just go in and say, I'm setting a drip campaign and it's gonna go until I say stop or until they move to one of the stop triggers. But if you want the recipient to be able to change courses or get onto a new drip campaign or have a new business rule fire based on whether they're opening, replying, clicking, then you're gonna wanna set up an action. So do you wanna walk us through setting an action up?
Yeah, let's do when somebody clicks, because that means that they have not only opened your email, but they've really engaged with it. So maybe I sent this invite, and it is a special invite to a story hour that we're having. So this invite, then anything can happen here. We can go to a business rule, we can go to a new drip campaign, or we can say, oh wait, they've clicked through, they're interested in something else, we're gonna stop this campaign. Which would you like to do?
I think I always like trigger business rule.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to get people to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is think about your drip campaigns as the communication piece. But I could imagine that my friends in centers will want to say, okay, if they clicked a link, I want somebody to follow up with them after that. So I would think you'd almost have, a drip campaign called Keep It Classy Back to School 2018, and then you might have a corresponding business rule that's called Keep It Classy 2018 follow-up, right? So that if this happens, I want this rule or this specific automation to fire for this kind of person, or that's how I would imagine using it. And you can tell me if you have other ideas.
I think you're absolutely right. So even if something else happened, let's say that the action was email bounced, you could then fire a business rule that says, call them and get an updated email.
Yeah, alert my team, review this file. Yeah, so I think the trigger business rule is a great one. I can also see the firing of a new drip campaign. Now, this is one point that I do want to start a new drip campaign. So if you choose this one, if you build this action in at any point in the drip, the other one that you need to add, unless you want two campaigns running simultaneously, is cancel this one, right?
Yes.
Because if you leave it just like this, what you're saying is run them both at the exact same time until a stop trigger of a status happens. But if you want a drip campaign to stop and start, you're going to want to add another action that says cancel campaign. There you go. There you go. So again, because of the way that these work and the advanced nature of these settings, I think that's why we've intentionally left this at a very, very, very high level. We want to make sure that the administrators of the database, the people who are creating these campaigns, really understand all of the workflows and all of the ins and outs and consequences and ramifications of using this. Because if you give it to just anyone, if anybody can build it, you may be putting messaging out there that you're not super thrilled with. So we're going to walk you through it. We're going to make sure that you're successful. But I don't foresee, because I have seen this question come in, will drip campaigns be available at center level? I honestly don't foresee that happening soon. We want to make sure that you guys love it, that you understand it, that you're using it just the way you did business rules and anything else. I think it's really important to keep it up at the very top level. All right, so I'm ready for my next drip. So try to move that backwards. See, yeah, what I like about the countdown campaign is that it is not going to let you move that slider backwards. So you're not going to accidentally be able to send drip 2 before drip 1. You can only go forward. And then you'll see that little red line of where you started. All right, so 50% in, I'm gonna send a start date reminder. And let's say this one, I don't wanna send an email. Why don't I send a text message? Again, this is part of your preparedness. Customer success is gonna look in there and make sure that you have some templates that make sense for drip campaigns, because in this instance, nothing does.
No.
So, and you cannot, this is another important piece to point out. You cannot have a great idea in the middle of setting this drip campaign up and build a template on the fly.
Right.
It has to already exist. So you could be like me and get very excited and start and think, oh my gosh, we should add a 5th week free coupon in there. Well, then you need to save and then go to marketing and add that template in so that you can find it. It will not, there's no way to just create a template on the fly.
Correct.
Event types here, you have failed and delivered. And then the same concept. Do I want to start a business rule, cancel the campaign, or start a new campaign?
Yeah. And if you have, this is a great instance where 2 features work hand in hand. If you have two-way communication turned on and you've done some communication here through text, you'll get that reply that maybe says, I need to change my start date, or
Right.
great, I'll see you then.
Yeah, I think, drip campaigns and two-way are standalone. They can work
Yeah.
just fine without one another. However, there is real benefit, especially I think for drip campaigns, for having that two-way turned on, because you can pivot based on text reply, email reply. We didn't look real close at it, but in the event types for email, you do have the option of email response. If you got a response from that parent, you can change courses of the campaign too. So they are standalone and they work just fine. And you may decide, if it were me, I would probably roll one out before I would roll, maybe not make so many changes the same day, but a lot of you are way braver than I am. So they do work very well together, but they stand alone just fine too.
And shameless plug, if you want to find more information about two-way, watch yesterday's broadcast.
Oh yeah, we did a really good broadcast yesterday where Lisa and I uncovered the myths about two-way communication and really dove into how it might work in your organization too.
Okay, ready for the next
I am ready. So in my third drip, again, can't go backwards, I can only go forward. If you set it at 100%, you're doing it, they're getting it the day of start. So maybe I do, maybe I want to send it a couple days before. So, first day checklist or whatever we're doing. Again, you have the option of email or text message. You can pick whichever email template or text message you would like. Event types are identical to the way they were. There we go. Now I do want to point out here,
Yeah.
which one are you doing?
I was just going to point out previous.
That's what I was going to do, so you take it. What is the difference between back and previous drip? That is the one I get hung up on. If I am clicking previous drip, I'm moving still within that second stage in build drip, so I can move between the messaging I'm sending. But if I hit back, I'm jumping back a stage, right?
Right.
Okay.
So if you hit back, you're going all the way back.
To details. Got it.
So the back and next apply to your steps of the campaign, but when you're within drips, it's previous drip and next drip.
The other thing that the system does is, we all use software differently. We all have different kind of muscle memory. Some of you really like the back and next. Just like in your managed groups, you can click up in details, you can click build drips. Now it will not let you, the ones that are grayed out, like for instance from here, you could not click summary, it won't let you. But if you see, when she goes to details, you can click to details from there if you prefer to use those versus the back and next buttons.
So how come on this one I don't have a next drip?
Because you can click up into the bubbles, the orange bubbles.
Yep. And this is my last drip.
That's your last drip.
So I only scheduled 3 drips. There is no next drip.
You're done. You're out.
Yep. You're all finished. So now I can go to next.
All right, so adding stop triggers. Stop triggers are identical to your business rules. They apply on statuses only, so not event completion, not task scheduling. Did you hear that? The Australian in me came out. So you can apply them on stop triggers. So basically the same concept as business rules. Send this campaign, do all of these things until this happens. So I guess that's a good way. If you set up a drip campaign for a start date that is 2 weeks away and you have 10 drips in there, we will get as much through it as we can and then stop it as soon as the enrollment status is hit or till your stop triggers are hit.
Or if the family decides they want to start earlier than expected, they're not going to continue to receive these drips that are no longer pertinent.
Exactly. And then you've got a summary of everything you have created, so you can look it over, be sure that it looks good. Now here's where you have your draft and publish. So Lisa, if I hit save as draft, that means I can still come back and I can work in it, but no one at center level is going to be able to launch it. I'm not going to be able to accidentally add it to a business rule or fire it in a group.
Yep, there it is right now.
I can see it. It's kind of editable, but nothing's actually happening on it. Now if I click into it, and I love it. And then I go to my builder. Now I have the option to save and publish. Are you sure? Yes, publish it. It's asking you twice because if anybody currently meets the criteria for these things, bam, it's on.
I said I was going to do a snap.
So be sure you're ready to go. All right, there you go. How about an archived? What does that look like? So again, in archive, you will have all of the statistics that ever happened with that drip, but we'll see when you go to the builder there, it will not allow you to pull it back out. There you go. So it's read only, still reportable. You can kind of see what was successful and what wasn't, but you won't be able to regenerate that campaign. All right, so do you want to talk about anything else in building?
No, I think
we covered it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you launch one.
Okay.
Now you can tell me if you think differently, but I would imagine that most people will utilize drip campaigns within business rules.
Okay.
So there are 3 places you can launch a drip campaign.
I was just going to say there's some other places too.
Within an individual lead file, within mass communication, so in your managed groups, and within business rules. So let's look at all 3 of them, but let's start in business rules because again, I think this is the one that really, really, really you have to be ready for because you're not just building templates out. You know, it's easy for us to say you need to have all the collateral and all the templates, but have you gotten your business rules prepared for what this looks like? Have you pulled some of those those emails out? And what if, somebody's in the middle of that business rule and you take that email template out of there and you move it to drip campaigns? You really need to think that through because changing your business rules changes what you are currently doing. So
Right.
You might want to transition slowly out of those of you who have built out really lengthy post-tour drip campaigns or lost opportunity drip campaigns. You may want to transition out slowly and start pulling some templates and you don't want to just yank the rug out from under all these prospects. Mm-hmm. All right, so if I want to add a drip campaign to my lost opportunities, so I'm looking at my lost op, when lead status equals lost opportunity, how do I add a drip campaign? I'll do add action. And then in action types, again, those of you who are familiar with business rules, what you'll see now is the ability to add a whole drip campaign versus just sending an email. Those of you who've done this before and you have 15 emails in your lost op campaign, you will be celebrating because you don't have to hit add email 1,000 times. So now in there you will see all of your drip campaigns that are in published. If it is still in draft or it is in archive, it will not appear. Think of them like marketing campaigns. When the marketing campaign expires, you can still report on it, but you will no longer see it in the drop down or the pick list. There we go. So now basically what I'm saying is when the status equals lost opportunity, I want you to start the drip campaign and I want you to send the lost opportunity survey. So again, if you're going to move the lost opportunity survey to a drip campaign, that's one that you'll want to pull out of the business rules so you don't duplicate messages.
Right.
Got it.
Did you want to do one from a lead?
Sure. I think we should definitely let's talk about the one in the lead because there are some things that can seem tricky, can seem confusing when you're going to this. So now on your manage lead screen, on the very front page,
Which is your first page.
you're going to see your children, your tasks to do, your pending emails and texts, just like you always have. And now you're going to see drip campaign. So if I click add a drip campaign, again, I've only got the ones that are actively published. And then I'll hit save. What's going to happen is I'm going to see this little warning that says this lead doesn't qualify. And you might go, but why? Because these children have start dates that are in the future. So how does this child not qualify for this campaign? Well, these children are enrolled, but
Right. There's something. There's a reason.
something.
So in this case, they don't qualify because that date has passed.
That date
they're
has
already,
passed.
The stop trigger has already happened. They're already in the enrolled status.
Exactly. Now, you will see it occasionally too when you have got Maybe your start date is in the future and you think all the parameters are exactly as they are. Why can I not fire it here right now today? And the answer is because again, the system is super intelligent, but how will it know which child's start date you want us to send on? There are more than one opportunity in this file. There's more than one child. How do we select? So in order to fire something like a start date, you're going to want to build that into the business rule, because you can change the business rules to be apply on child or apply on family. Or in your managed group setting, you can always do that as well, because we know the parameters that you've built out for that child. But adding a drip campaign in a leads file, if we don't know how to decipher or tell the information apart, you're going to have a hard time doing it. But you'll always get the warning that says you can't apply it here. All right, so in the group manager, which is one of my other favorite features, so let's say, look, there's a drip launcher one. Send
There it
communication. Yeah. There we go. So here's all of the leads that meet the parameters. And remember, managed groups is dynamics too. So people are jumping on this list, jumping off this list, coming and going based on the criteria that you've already sent. In that user guide, there's a little snippet or best practice in there about how to segment your audiences. That's another part of being prepared, I think. What do your segments look like? What are you creating these campaigns for? Are you going to do it on age group? Are you going to do it on special interest? Are you doing it purely based on the enrollment for the fall season? You need to kind of recognize your segments and be able to build them out. And I think along with preparing your business rules, going into the managed groups and preparing some groups to launch these is another important step to do it. If you aren't familiar with this piece of the system, look, I think before you start, 2 pieces of the system you should absolutely understand: the business rules and the managed groups. If you aren't super proficient there, give yourself some time. Go add a new business rule, understand how it works, get comfortable with that, create a group, send a mass email, send a mass text, get really comfortable with how that works. And then I would say, if I were creating the checklist, those 2 things would be on it. Are you really comfortable with those 2 pieces of the system? There we go. All right, so now in step 2, you have the option of, you always have had email, event, label, task, text message, but now you're going to see the option to send an entire drip campaign. You'll hit next. There's everybody that's going to be getting it. And just like you're used to, it will deduplicate. So if you've got a parent in there that has 3 children and meets the criteria 3 different times, we will take her email out so she only gets it 1 time.
Yes.
And then we're good to go. So we can hit start. And now everybody in that will start a drip campaign. All right. So those are the 3 ways to fire a drip campaign, build a drip campaign. Again, I think this is probably one of the more intensive features to set up. So I am sure that there have been questions coming in.
There have been. And let me talk about how people get the questions to us. Let me talk about the support, because there are some features here that I want to make sure everyone's aware of. There's a lot of ways for you to reach support. So the help section up here, the first one is to view or create a ticket.
Okay.
So when we were talking about you have to request for the feature to be turned on, you can do that right here with view or create a ticket. You can also just email directly to support@childcarecrm.com.
Okay.
When you send that email, it creates a ticket.
Gotcha.
So tickets are really what you want to do when you have something that is maybe a longer term question or maybe not pressing and urgent. A ticket is, I want to know this answer, but I'm going to go to lunch and then I'll look for the answer in an hour or 2.
Okay.
The next option is to start chat.
Okay.
And the chat,
I love
you can
it.
start a chat here. Here's many conversations that I've had. I'm going to start a new conversation and say, hello from Drip Campaigns.
I love that you can see who's online right now too.
Yes. And then this is also really important, Emily, if you could share with people how you're using this messaging.
So our team on the marketing side of it, we use this feature a lot to communicate with you and your teams. And how we do it is we have the option of either sending an in-app chat that you'll see a little notification, or you might see my little face come up that says, hey, I have something for you, or we can send emails here. So we did a lot of promotion for this release. Actually, we did almost 100% of it through this particular messaging system. And what I was finding is people were either busy and moving on their day and dismissing, or they were not checking the emails. Totally understood. However, really important information is going to be either alerting you inside the system or sending you an email. Those of you who said, there's members of my team that did not get the email, the other important piece of this is they have to have a user account. So if you have somebody who might not be actually interacting with Childcare CRM, so they don't have a user account with us, but they still want to get the information, you might go in there and just create them a staff profile. They don't actually have to use it. They don't even need to know the login. But they will have a record with us now, so I can start communicating there. And we send out updates like release notes or when we publish information on the blog. So do check it out. You can always archive or kind of go back through your message history and see what we said. If there's a better way to communicate with you, we would love to hear it. I want to know where you guys are at and where you're reading your messaging, because I hate the idea that you didn't get some important tidbits from us and you felt caught off guard before the release. So let me know where you're at. I'll find you there.
So the next part of the help is the submit an idea. And this has been here for a little while, but I really want to point it out to people because we like drip campaigns, but honestly, it wasn't my idea. It wasn't Emily's idea.
Cannot take credit for it. Really
Drip
thrilled about it. But
they came from users.
Yep.
The majority of what you see and the majority of what's included in a release comes from users. We get our ideas from you. And the way that you can let us know what your ideas are is through this submit an idea.
Yeah.
So if you hit submit an idea, you will then generate an idea ticket. The great piece about this and what's new to this feature is when you go into submit an idea, you can also see all of the ideas that other users have submitted. And you can read through those ideas and say, wow, I really like that one. I'd like to see that implemented in the system.
Yeah.
And you can give it a vote so that can gain priority in our development. So we're really looking at this and saying, what do the users want? What are we going to create for them? That's where this is coming from.
And I like that it's visual too. For years, Lisa and I have both been on the other side of this, where we were users of the system, and we only had tickets. So we would put a ticket in, and you would have the same kind of questions that your waitlist families would have. Where do I sit? What's the status of that? Did you guys accept it? Did you like it? Did you not? I like that this particular feature is visual, so you can put an idea in and you can see where on the priority list it's going. And I also like when you start kind of typing in ideas, the system recognizes words and says, wait, before you finish that, have you checked out Lisa Henkel? Because she has a really good story on this. You want to check that one out first and see if you prefer that. And I even have found myself on our side of it, writing stories in there, seeing somebody else's and going, that might actually be a better way to do it, and I had not thought of that. So it's a really cool, it also kind of creates a sense of community too. There's other CRM users, they're using it different ways. I can read through how they're doing it. It's like knowledge sharing is really cool. So if you haven't checked that out, you should absolutely do that today.
So we have gotten a couple of questions around drip campaigns. Not very many.
Okay.
And the reason is because people are being they're having good preparation. So we don't have a lot of people who are already using it, but just a couple of questions that came up. So the biggest question is, what happened to my system? Was there an update or something?
People are asking if there was an update. Okay, gotcha. So yes, there was an update. It was on June 27th, just a couple weeks ago. It feels like a long time ago, but it was just a couple of weeks ago. And again, the way that we communicated it to you was via that little in-app chat. So you either got an email from us because you have a user account. We pushed you to the landing page. We let you know about sneak peek videos. Another great resource for you if you're feeling kind of out of the loop is to come to this YouTube channel and hit subscribe. We post a lot of videos on here, and if you are a subscriber, you will always get an alert. You'll get an alert that we posted a new video. You'll get an alert that we plan on having a video, even if it's 30 days down the road. Anytime we schedule something, you'll get an alert. The YouTube system will remind you that Childcare CRM has something or is going live. And we also are notified when you put a chat in there, or when you get a question, when you're watching a video and you ask on YouTube. So we did a lot of promotion through that little chat bubble on the landing page. Also, again, if you go to that landing page and you allow for notifications, you'll see anytime we update that. So we want to make sure that you are fully prepared for the release with as much information as we have. And again, if you're not seeing it or you're feeling still left out, please let me know how to find you. All I want to do is make sure that you guys are ready to go and you're not surprised. So yes, there was a change to your system. The release notes were featured in that kind of promo. So that's where you would have found out about it. But yeah,
What
it
about
did change.
the other changes that weren't necessarily these big three
That's
things?
true. So we talked a lot about drip campaigns, two-way communication, enrollment team. There were some other changes that happened in the system in order to accommodate these features. You might have seen your manage lead screen, the very first page of anybody's file. You might have seen that shaken up a little bit, right? And so we put a little notice in there that said, hey, you're missing something, you're looking for something, here's some release notes you should probably read. But, you know, Lisa, you made a good point on yesterday's webinar that these features are great. You guys came up with them, you asked for them, you demanded them for a long time. In order to fit them, we had to move some things around. And I think, you know, muscle memory is difficult. We all get used to using the system one way. But I really do think, in looking at it, this is the best place to manage communications as they continue to grow, especially if you're turning on two-way. So tell me about the communications tab that I see now.
So one of the things that did change was we do have communications tab. This particular database that we're in does have the two-way on, but that was important because it now allows us to see if we have inbound or outbound communication, which is different than activities.
Okay.
Activities are really the things that you're doing. I'm sending an email, I'm making a phone call, whereas communications are about the emails and the text.
Got it. So in the activities, I can say, show me all of it, any human interaction, any system interaction, text and email, or I can kind of toggle between the two. And your status is
if I wanted to see just what I did, just the physical things I had to do, I would pick none. But if I wanted to include everything, I would go then to text.
And the hover feature still is there, which I really like, where you can just quickly hover over and see everything. You still have the statuses of those emails where they opened, clicked, linked, bounced. That did not go away for you, so that's all there. So things have just kind of shuffled a little bit, but everything is there. Your pending emails and text, though, and your drip campaigns sit on the current tab. So on the current tab,
still on the manage lead screen.
You've got your children, the things that you need to do in the future, pending emails and texts that you can edit or okay, so there's a big difference between a pending email and text and a drip campaign. So if I have a pending email and text, the tour reminder, the tour confirmation, you can still edit that. You can still go in there, change the time, change the content of it, if you will. In a drip campaign, if you launch that, it's not an editable. It is going off with that content as is, unless somebody at the very top level goes to the template and changes the template, in which case it will update itself. But that is probably one of the biggest differences, is that drip campaign templates, you don't edit on the fly.
Right. So another question is, I saw that there was a big launch, and I don't think that it's working yet for my company. I can't seem to find the drip campaign button. Why not?
Really happy you did know about it. So you read some of the messaging, you got to the landing page, that's good. Why don't I see it? Well, again, we kind of walked through, we want you to be prepared. So you need to put a ticket in, either by clicking the help button and submitting a ticket, or emailing support@childcarecrm.com, so that we can be sure you're ready, that you don't want to use the lab environment, or that you do, get you all set up, and then we will turn that preference on, in which case you'll see it in the settings section.
Can I use the drip campaigns for just one location, or does it have to be for everyone?
Okay, so because it is a preference at global top level, once you turn it on, it's on for everybody. What can I do to make sure that drip campaigns are only available location by location? You can templates. I mean, you can make your templates location level only. You know, when you're creating that template, you can select which part of the hierarchy you want it at. If it's at corporate level, everybody can see it. If it's at location level, only that location would see that drip campaign to be able to fire it. So you are turning it on database wide. But if you are concerned that you want a specific drip campaign only for a set location, or a location group, or a region, that's a really good time to let us kind of hold your hand through it and make sure that you're setting it up correctly.
What if I start using drip campaigns and I don't like it? It doesn't work for me.
Well, why? I want to know why. First of all, so we can make it better. But so of the big three features, this one kind of is an exit. You can exit it. You can move your templates back to the business rules if you want. You can say it's just not for me. We'll make sure, again, to hold your hand and make sure that you're successful a little bit, so that we don't just disappear these templates from your database. But we can walk you back out of this one. This one is not an all in or an all out. Again, you also have the archive ability. So if you want, leave it on and just archive everything and move everything back to your business tool. So this one is not an all-in function. You can back out of it.
I know we already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it again.
Okay.
Am I ready for this feature?
Are you ready personally?
No,
You
no.
better be.
No. As a user, my organization.
Gotcha.
You know, if I'm a user and I say to you, hey, am I ready? Is this for me?
Yeah, and you know that question continues to come up, and even those of you who have known us long term, and you will ask me, hey Emily, how do you want me to use drip campaigns, or do you think I should use drip campaigns? And even I, you know, knowing you guys as long as I have been very hesitant to say, absolutely, you're gonna love this, turn this on. Because I think you have to make that decision. Are you ready? Do you have the tools you need? Can you inspect what you expect when you turn this on? Is your team going to use it and respond the way you want them to? You are the only one who can make that decision. So I think using that lab environment is just critical to a feature like this. Maybe not with some of the other ones, you might not need to test them out as much, but this is a big long-term strategy decision. And again, that does come back into it. It's not just having the collateral. It's, do you actually have a long-term marketing strategy? Do you know where you're going? Do you know what your end game is, what your goals are? What do you want to get out of this? So start with the end in mind, use the lab environment. You have to decide if you're really ready for this.
That's the questions.
That was it? Okay.
Well, we answered a couple of them, like
Along the
how
way.
do I add a campaign? We
Well, I
already done
think,
that.
you know, the other thing about these features is with the lab environment, more really great questions are going to come out of it, and we need to know them. So the questions that you have, you know, put them in this YouTube video, get the lab environment, let our team know, because we want to know what you're thinking and what you're wondering. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. But thanks, Lisa. It's been a fun couple of
Thank you.
days. We had a blast. We will talk to you guys soon. Bye.